You might be wondering to yourself, hey, there's a new Hellraiser movie coming out. What about the rest of the series? Well, I did it so that you don't have to for a lot of these direct-to-DVD or direct-to-video Hellraiser sequels. We've got some great ones, like the first three that are in this wonderful set from Arrow Video. This is the more standard budget version of the Scarlet Box. If you can get your hands on that, good for you. But we have 11 Hellraiser movies coming out now, and 11 because we've got the new one coming out on Friday, October 7th, or tomorrow if you're watching this video, or whenever you're going to watch this video. Hellraiser 2022 is out on Hulu, and we're going to go over all 11 films ranked worst to best. So without further ado, let's get to the list. Starting off, we have Hellraiser Revelations from 2011. Hellraiser Revelations, whenever a movie comes out and the only reason why it got made was because the rights were going to lapse, basically the biggest example would be the Fantastic Four movie, the last one made by Fox. They only made that because the rights were going to lapse if they didn't. Hellraiser Revelations is a very similar situation where the rights were going to lapse, and then they said, okay, screw it, let's make a movie. They made this movie in 2 weeks, and they didn't get Doug Bradley on. He refused to do it because it was so bad. And so I really like to be positive. I like to be positive here on the channel. Everybody knows that. But this movie is an embarrassment. This is an embarrassment to the Hellraiser name. It is, everything about this movie is embarrassing. Normally you would say, okay, well, haha, it's the director's fault, they're terrible at their job or whatever, or the screenwriter. But when you have 2 weeks to make a feature-length film that is a Hellraiser movie, complete with Pinhead makeup and everything, and effects, it's impossible. It is impossible to make a good movie. So this movie set out, and I'm sure that they wanted to make a good movie and everything, but they didn't. It was only screened for one theater, which was for the cast and crew, and that's it. It went straight to video after that, and it was thrown away and forgotten. This movie, a Saturday Night Live parody of Hellraiser, would look better than this movie does. I saw the screenshot. There's a famous one. It's this one, the meme-worthy screenshot of Pinhead. It looks like SNL did a Hellraiser movie. And so you just have to... This one is unwatchable. It is unwatchable garbage. Don't watch it. Don't, shit on the filmmakers because they made this movie. This is 150% the studio's fault. This movie is also awful. I was about to say it's awesome. Do not watch it. Do not watch Hellraiser Revelations under any circumstances unless you're doing a list like this. Now that we got that out of the way, we can get to some of the movies on the list that might actually be, Hellraiser movies. Hellraiser Hellseeker from 2002 just isn't good. It's mediocre. It's not even mediocre. It's just not good. It sees the return of Ashley Lawrence to the role that made her famous, Kirsty, but she's basically like a glorified cameo in the film, and she doesn't really follow like what her character would do if you followed like the first 2 movies here. It's not good. It's just kind of it's not even it's just bad. It's not fun to watch, and it fundamentally changes her character. Clive Barker actually screened a cut of this movie and offered notes to the filmmakers. Those notes were taken into account and then thrown into the garbage by the studio because I guess they didn't want it, and they got really mad when Clive Barker got screened the movie. So go figure. Maybe if you want to make another Hellraiser movie, you'd get Clive Barker, the original person, involved, but they didn't want to here, and it suffers because of that. This movie is not as bad as Hellraiser Revelations, but it is still not very fun to watch. I don't recommend it at all. Number 9, we have Hellraiser Judgment from 2018. This is another one that was shot to keep the license, which is great, but this one had a little bit more thought and care put into it by the filmmaker, but it still is not very good. These Hellraiser direct-to-video sequels, they have a reputation for being laughably bad, and they are. It's just, it's upsetting because Hellraiser is such a cool series, and Hellraiser Judgment has some good ideas to it. You could actually see the rumblings of an actual movie here, and then it just kind of doesn't really work. And then Paul T. Taylor steps in as Pinhead here, and it's just like the people that step into the role are trying to be Doug Bradley, and you can't be Doug Bradley as Pinhead. So if you're going to play Pinhead, make it your own. Don't just try to copy him. Don't just try to be another person in it. It's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And Doug Bradley didn't do it because the studio wanted to force him into an NDA after the whole debacle that they had previously, and he wouldn't do it. And so they took him out and they said, screw it, we're going to recast you. And they recast somebody that this movie's trying, at least. It's trying, but it's not succeeding at being a good Hellraiser movie. It leaves open for a sequel that's never going to come. So if you sit down, this is the first one of all of them, of these direct-to-video ones on this list, that is actually watchable. Maybe you'll enjoy it more than I did, but Hellraiser Judgment just it doesn't quite get there. Number 8, we have one of the two Hellraiser movies from 2005. We have Hellraiser Deader, and this one, like a lot of these direct-to-video sequels as well, did not start off as a Hellraiser movie. Most of these don't start off as Hellraiser movies. They start off as, pulpy sort of police procedurals or whatever, or pulp sort of movies, and then somebody gets the bright idea, hey, we should shoehorn Pinhead in, eh? And then they do it because studio executives in Hollywood are really smart. Hellraiser Deader, if you like police procedurals, like this one might actually catch your eye. It might actually be worth a watch. It just had zero involvement from Clive Barker, and that's just, it's sad. It's just bad. It's sad. It's just, everything about it is just, eh. It's simply mediocre, which is kind of just there. I don't know. Hellraiser Deader, it's not as bad as the previous three, but it's not good, and it just, I don't know what else to say. It's just kind of blasé, boring, It's a Hellraiser direct-to-video sequel. What more do you want? I don't know. I want more than this because I want Hellraiser movies to be good. Hellraiser Hellworld from 2005 is the first of these direct-to-video sequels that actually feels a little bit like a Hellraiser movie. It feels a little bit like a movie. It's a very inventive concept where there's a Hellraiser MMORPG. This was made at the time when World of Warcraft was king of the world. And it has a house party thrown by Lance Henriksen. Yes, it has Lance Henriksen, the horror legend, in it. It has a young Henry Cavill. Yes, Superman is in this movie as well. And the group goes to this party and starts getting picked off one by one by either Lance Henriksen or Pinhead. And it's actually revealed that Pinhead is... it's just a hallucination the entire time, and Pinhead doesn't actually exist. That's the really lame part about it, is that it's not actually anything, but it's set in this world where Hellraiser is a thing. It's got some inventive kills, I guess. Henry Cavill, it's a novelty to see him. And Lance Henriksen's always going to be awesome whenever you watch a movie like this. So, this is the first one where I can give a solid, yeah, watch it. It's a recommendation if you're a Hellraiser fan. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty inventive. And it's better than these other ones, but it's not super great. Up next, we have number 6. We do have a bit of an upset pick here. We have Hellraiser 3... Hell on Earth from 1992. This is where, after the first two movies were, we'll get to those ones. But after the first two movies, they wanted to make Pinhead into Freddy Krueger. And so how do you make Pinhead into Freddy Krueger? You turn him into a horror icon, a horror slasher icon. You have him giving quips and stuff like that. And it sort of goes like the full Nightmare on Elm Street 2, where it sort of breaks the rules that were set by the first two movies, and you just have Cenobites going around murdering people willy-nilly in the streets, and it just kind of... It's cool. It's still good at the end of the day, but it's just weird to see, and it's just kind of like, why did you... I get why they did it, because studio executives, once again, are just absolutely genius IQ, and are like, hey, we have these first two movies, we have Clive Barker that might want to be interested in it again, and we have a whole series of novels we can sort of draw from. Screw all that. We're going to turn him into Freddy Krueger. So it just feels like an overindulgent series that is going off the rails, and that's what you get with Hell on Earth. That's what you get with this one. You get some good work from Doug Bradley into sort of the lore and the mythos of Pinhead and the Cenobites, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't do the job very well. Number 5, we have Hellraiser Inferno, and you might know the director of this one because he directed Doctor Strange and a couple of other horror movies. He just directed The Black Phone, and that's Scott Derrickson. This is his directorial debut. It's the first direct-to-video Hellraiser movie, and this one's pretty good. It started off, once again, as not a Hellraiser movie, but it morphed into that. It's got a pretty good performance from Craig Sheffer as the main cop that's a Denver PD officer who's sort of corrupt and has done some pretty horrible things in his life. And his therapist is played by James Remar from The Warriors and 48 Hours, and among other things. He's a great character actor. He plays his therapist, and the twist to this one is that actually his therapist ends up being Pinhead. And the whole movie is sort of this hellacious sort of vision or loop that he's going through where he's atoning for his sins of his life. So it's really weird because it's like Pinhead is supposed to be the villain, but he's acting more as like this arbiter of justice almost against this corrupt police officer going through his own life. And it's very stylistic. It shows off what Scott Derrickson would be up to later in his career, and it's actually pretty watchable for being the first direct-to-video one. It's got a lot of gore. It's very disgusting. There's some very like dark imagery here. So if you're into that kind of stuff and you're into Hellraiser, Hellraiser Inferno is for you. Number 4, we have a movie that could have been so much better, and that's Hellraiser Bloodline from 1996. This is the last theatrical release for Hellraiser because obviously the new one isn't going to the theater. But Hellraiser Bloodline is good and could have been something much more epic and grand in scope. It follows a bloodline, 3 generations of a French toy maker through time as he tries to stop Pinhead and make another basically lament configuration puzzle box to contain Pinhead and destroy him, destroy the Cenobites. This one has an awesome story. It's time spanning. It could have been so much more though. There was so much that got left on the table because of the budget of this and because Miramax Films is just so great. Harvey Weinstein is just the worst person on the face of the earth for multiple reasons, but one reason being that they gutted Hellraiser Bloodlines' budget and the scope of the film. There was so much more to this, but as is, the performances are very good. It had some directorial issues, which is surprising considering that the movie is very good as a finished product, but sometimes that happens where you have a director step in for somebody else and then the movie ends up being very good. If not for the meddling and the budget cuts and everything, this could have been better, but Hellraiser Bloodline is well worth a watch. At number 3, we have Hellraiser 2022. I just recently did a video review of this, so if you want to see my full thoughts, you can get them there. But this one brings the franchise back. It goes off the ledge. Well, this franchise was already off the ledge and plummeting towards the ground, but it magically grabs it and pulls it back to the ledge, and you get a back-to-basics Hellraiser movie with plenty of gore, Cenobites. Jamie Clayton is just absolutely stunning as Pinhead in this film. The cast is great. The just imagery, the sound, the soundtrack, the score, everything. It just has all the hallmarks of a great Hellraiser movie. And it's just fantastic. The only disappointing thing is that the villain is a little bit kind of generic. They're not in the film for very long, but you get a lot of Cenobite action. They are practical. They are in suits. The gore effects are great. Check out my full review to get my full thoughts on Hellraiser 2022. Check it out on Hulu as well. Number 2, we have Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 from 1988. This was the second one. Clive Barker didn't direct this one, but he was involved with it. And it continues the story from Hellraiser. You still have Kirsty Cotton, and you still have Julia from the first film being as delightfully evil as ever. And you get an expansion of the lore here. You get an expansion of the story of the Cenobites, of Pinhead, and you get an expansion of everything. You get to see Hell, you get to see the Leviathan, you get a new Cenobite with Dr. Channard, who is just... I remember watching this movie for the first time, and what he does in this film is very, very, very disturbing. This movie, the first one has very disturbing effects. This one unsettled me even more so than the first one for whatever reason. There's just a lot in it. The Cenobites are more of like, once again, like these arbiters of not justice, but they are a neutral faction in this film, and it's very awesome to see where obviously later in the series they go down more of that horror slasher villains. But Dr. Channard is terrifying. Julia is evil as hell. Ashley Lawrence gives a great performance here. It's just crappy that she didn't get to continue on barely in the series with this. So hopefully with some of the Hellraiser sequels, maybe we'll get her back, or maybe the Hellraiser TV show that they are adapting or producing right now. Hellbound Hellraiser 2 is absolutely fantastic and would be the best in the series if not for number 1, Hellraiser from 1987. Clive Barker wrote and directed this one. You can't get much better than this as a horror movie. The effects, the story, the costumes, the characters, the music, the environment, everything about Hellraiser is actually just perfect. You have Ashley Lawrence in a star-making performance here, and she does a magnificent job. This is the movie about Julia and Frank as the villains here, not the Cenobites. The Cenobites just come in and kind of fix the mess, but this is an utterly fantastic horror movie. If you haven't seen Hellraiser, I don't know why you're watching a rankings list, but Hellraiser is wonderful. It is beautiful. It is stunning. The effects are amazing. Go check out Hellraiser. So that'll do it for the Hellraiser series, ranked 11 to 1, worst to best, whatever you want to call it. This is a fun list to do. It was not fun to watch some of these Hellraiser movies, but I did it so you don't have to. What do you think of the Hellraiser series? What do you think of the order here? I know there's some of those that might upset some people. Some people really like Hellraiser 3. And for me, it's kind of middle of the road. But I think we can all agree on the worst one in the series, at least. Go check out Hellraiser on Hulu. Go watch it. Go tell your friends to watch it so we can get a sequel, so we can get a theatrical release or a Blu-ray release, because I know it would go great on my shelf next to this box set for the first 3 Hellraiser movies. I have to get some of the other ones in the series on Blu-ray and make sure not to get some of the other sequels. But from Pinhead and I to you, thanks for watching, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because it really helps me out and helps the YouTube algorithm out. But what's your favorite Hellraiser series? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.